And as you would have already known, if you're here, is that we will be talking to Andrew Murdoch, who is a digital nomad. And Andrew will be sharing quite a bit with us in terms of his journey and what really made him choose the remote life. Okay. Okay. All right. So we have sent that now.
Great.
And we will go live. So thank you guys. For those of you who are seeing and hearing us, we thank you for sticking around. We had some major delays. You know, with technology, you can never predict what may or may go right. We have tested several times prior, but thankfully you have stuck around. We still have some work to do in terms of getting the link to others who had accessed it via other platforms and are actually trying to get onto the wrong link via that platform. So thank you once again. My name is Shanoy. I'm a development communication specialist and also a lover of the remote life. Many of you may not know, but I have functioned in a communication capacity, often with international organizations. And that is where I have developed several of my remote life competencies, primarily communicating and working with different organizations across borders and cultures. But it's not about me. This interview series is really to pull together like-minded remote professionals and to give you, those of the persons joining us, some insights into what it takes, probably some of the characteristics and why people are going in this direction. So today, our first person we'll be talking to is Mr. Andrew Murdoch. And Andrew has been a digital nomad for quite a while. He has been living and loving it, and also he has been earning by working remotely. And I won't go into too much. I'll just ask Andrew to just give us a brief overview in terms of who he is before we get into the real questions. For those of you joining us, if there's anything you want to ask, feel free to drop it in our chat box, and then Andrew and I will just try to respond to as many questions as possible. So Andrew, over to you.
Thank you so much, Shanoy, for including me in that remote life. I think I commend you for organizing this speaker series this week. I think it's timely. I think it's important. I think there are a lot of people that are frightened and scared in the current crisis, the current pandemic. You mentioned that some of the characteristics and some of the reasons why people are drawn to the remote working lifestyle, and I was certainly drawn to this lifestyle. I'm also a lover of the remote working and living lifestyle. However, I consider myself very fortunate. I'm very grateful that I actually made the decision to be a remote worker, and I cannot ignore the fact that there are millions of people around the globe right now that have been forced into a remote working situation for perhaps the very first time and are now experiencing a very steep learning curve. So I'm hoping my story will offer a little bit of insights, and I'm pumped. I'm excited to be here live with you. Yeah, we had some bumps in the road, but that's how it goes sometimes. The technology is always going to continue getting better and better and better. And I really want to appreciate and thank everyone for joining us live, and people that are going to be watching the recording later on. Make sure you leave a comment below in the comment section, and we'll monitor those questions and try to help out where we can. Because in this day and age, it's all about pulling together and leaning on one another, because it's a scary time. It's a scary time, and we can't deny that. So a little bit of a background about me. I have a very unique professional background. I certainly did not follow the crowd, follow the herd. I was a blue-collar professional for years and years and years. I was a scuba instructor in cruise ships. I was a train conductor for the largest railway in Canada for 4 years. I was a firefighter. I was a Canadian Coast Guard rescue diver stationed at the Hovercraft base in Vancouver, Canada, which is the busiest SAR base in the entire country. SAR stands for Search and Rescue, the busiest SAR base in the country. And I have nothing but utmost respect and huge props to anyone who works in emergency services, especially during these times when things are less than ideal. And so my life was bouncing around in those niches, those professions, until I decided to take the active, make an active shift in my lifestyle. And I actually became an insurance agent. I was an insurance agent for a couple of years. And then I ended up transitioning away from that, and I accepted my very first remote role with an American company. And it wasn't because I was intending to seek out remote work. It just kind of landed in my lap in a way, but I also provided a lot of value for that enterprise for months before they offered me that role with the company. And so I found myself working remotely for the very first time, learning a whole new career, learning a whole new industry, and before I knew it, my personal life came crashing down because I was married at the time and had to end a relationship that was no longer helping myself or her, and so I found myself sleeping on an air mattress in a friend of a friend's bedroom, spare bedroom. I scrounged up as much cash as I could to pay him some rent, and I stayed there for 6 weeks. And basically completely revamped my entire life in 6 weeks. I became a digital nomad, and digital nomadism is very, very close to living a minimalist lifestyle. So I ended up selling my car, I gave away stuff, donated things to charity, and just unloaded as much as I possibly could, put the bare essentials into a storage locker, and then I booked a one-way flight. And that was in December 2018. I'm not saying that remote workers need to be minimalists like I am. Clearly, it aligns well with being a digital nomad, but it certainly isn't needed to be a remote professional. And I booked that one-way flights, and I haven't looked back. That within the first year of being a digital nomad, had the time of my life. I was scuba diving in Mexico. I was driving tractors in Connecticut. I was going to the aquarium in Boston. I was watching some of the best sunsets I've ever seen in my life in the Canary Islands. I was drinking in pubs in London. I was just enjoying being a digital nomad and exploring this beautiful planet. And now I have these wonderful memories of all these incredible experiences while we're all in lockdown. We're all in quarantine. And I find a lot of people, for what I can tell, a lot of people are just going a little stir crazy right now. But I think it's really important to focus on what we have and and to be grateful for everything that we're exposed to right now that's actually supporting us. I have a roof over my head. My loved ones are safe. I have drinkable water out of the tap. I have food in the fridge. I have toilet paper. I mean, the world's going down a weird path, but I'm still very grateful. I'm humbled. I'm fortunate, and and here I am now, able to hopefully share some value with you and your audience. Shanoy, thank you so much for including me again. We live in some very strange times, and I hope my story and some of my experience and knowledge will help some of your viewers here.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. So let's talk. I mean, you went a bit in terms of the flexibility, and I can relate to that because one of the things why I moved towards a remote model was the craving for that flexibility. But I also don't want my viewers to think of the remote life as being without its challenges. So let's talk a bit about some of the challenges. I mean, now is a very good time to look at those because travel was always a big thing for me. You know, I would be traveling and working. Now that we have travel restrictions, and that being one main challenge, what are some other challenges that people probably will face while working remotely? You know, in terms of the support systems as well, family members and that sort of stuff. So just tell me a bit about that.
Great question, because I agree with you. I would hate to join you on this live stream and somehow make people think that becoming a remote professional, remote worker is going to solve all their problems. That is not the case. That's not what we're here to tell you. You are. I thank you for sharing your time with us because everyone has only a finite amount of time, and here you are learning about being a remote worker. So you are basically exchanging certain challenges and obstacles in your current lifestyle for a completely different set to becoming a remote worker. And you just touched on one of those obstacles, Shanoy, that I can certainly relate. When I chose to live a digital nomadic lifestyle, I certainly have received some criticism from loved ones. And the most obvious, I have to say, is my mom. my mom, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that can relate to this, but my mom thought at the time that I was being very risky. She felt that I was not going a safe path. She was concerned for my safety. She was worried about what kind of dangers and what kind of risks I'm exposing myself to. And at the end of the day, she has now come around, because she is now very grateful that I've spent the last 2 years cultivating and developing a skill set that allows me to bring value to clients, to employers in a remote fashion. Because right now, firms, companies, businesses worldwide are scrambling. They are scrambling because some of them have completely shut their doors. Some of them are operating on a skeleton crew, and others have basically told all of their employees to work from home, and if they're parents, to homeschool their children.
Yeah.
And we've never seen this set of circumstances before. And like I said, I was lucky. I made this. This was a voluntary choice on my part. I'm a very lucky son of a you-know-what.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to waste that. I want to share this experience with everyone, because that flexibility is valuable. I find that without knowing, a lot of people have painted themselves into a corner by doing a profession or a career that requires them to be in a specific location. And please don't take this the wrong way. I have nothing but respect for doctors and nurses and all the people that are making the world a better place right now. These are heroes without capes. I myself had a lot of jobs back in another life that required me to be in a certain place. I sat down and decided to change my life, because I knew that there's always going to be factors out there that I'm not going to be able to influence. I'm not going to be able to influence how much fake fiat currency the Fed prints. I'm not going to be able to influence weather or natural disasters. I'm not going to be able to influence my government or a company that I'm working for. Okay. And now having the flexibility, the ability to bring value to anyone just with my laptop or my phone or my iPad and an internet connection, this gives me a certain flexibility. And I'm no longer painted in that corner that all these people around the world are just realizing now, because they've been fired, they've been laid off, they've been told to go home, and they're lost. They're feeling lost. They're like, and many of them had 6-figure paying jobs, 7-figure paying jobs, and now for the first time they realized that they were actually exposed to a certain amount of risk that they hadn't planned on.
Okay.
So those are some of the obstacles that I certainly would relate to.
Yeah, so certainly. And I mean, you've touched a lot in terms of traditional expectations, in terms of job opportunities, and then in terms of more modern or more relatable opportunities. But to be fair as well, though, Andrew, I did have a friend. I remember I spoke to her, I was very passionate about how much more productive I was when I was given the flexibility in terms of where to work and time frames. Like, I was one who hated having to pop in at 9 a.m. And I went through a situation where I actually proved to the organization that, listen, I'm going to come in at 11, but I'm also going to show you the comparative level of work I get done. And then friends knowing this have said to me, Shanoy, I could never function that way. I need to be in an office setting. I could never do that. But now we're seeing, especially with COVID-19 and several other pandemics that may or may not occur, that people are being forced into working remotely. What would you say for someone who was not just a skeptic, but someone who has pretty much been forced into this? What are some of the mindset, the characteristics, the traits, and basic tools that they could use to start off on their remote journey?
Great question. Yeah, I fully relate to the point that some people are very critical of being able to maintain their productivity. Recently, Kevin O'Leary, one of the sharks from America's Shark Tank, actually did a webinar recently, and he admitted and he famously owns like over 50 companies around Canada, US, and Mexico, and he has fully admitted that he would have been too nervous to make this shift to have all of his staff working from home before the pandemic hit. Then his hand was forced, just like all the employees that have been forced into this new role, and he's suddenly realizing that he's actually increased his productivity, his own, and his teams have increased their productivity. Now, some businesses are hurting awful and other businesses are thriving, just like in any marketplace. Some markets do well and other markets are going to suffer. Now, what he and other CEOs, other managers, other founders have decided, have recognized, is that productivity has actually increased. Now, the number one reason why someone is drawn, there's a number of surveys out there that have proved this. Number one reason why employees and freelancers are drawn to the remote working lifestyle is actually to save money. 48% of a recent survey filled in was the number one reason was to save money. But there was another reason further down that list that actually stated higher productivity. The ability to be able to go to the washroom when you want, because some of these places where you work, you can only go to the washroom and take washroom breaks during specific times. So, I mean, there's a lot of obvious and sometimes less than obvious options of having that added flexibility of being able to work the hours you want to work. Because we're not all wired the same. Some people are more productive early in the morning. Other people are more productive late in the afternoon. You just made the case with your employer that you were able to prove that you can be more productive for your employer, for your client, by working the hours you decide. That is actually one of the results of the survey that I tracked recently, is that productivity actually went up. So it's a win-win situation. We're talking about a win-win situation here, because employees report being happier. They report being able to save money. They report more time with loved ones. They report being able to spend more time with their pets and not stressing their pets out, because we all know, anyone with a fur baby will tell you that the dogs really get stressed out when they're left home alone for far too long. And say again, sorry?
No, I'm saying when you leave them alone for too long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're not a fan of that at all, are they? And now, on the other side of that, employers are reporting higher productivity levels and lower expenses, because now they're not spending the $10 million on commercial real estate downtown and some headquarters to house everyone, and then think about all the utilities associated with that. And then currently, because of the pandemic, these businesses are now also realizing that they were exposed to a certain amount of risk. Other examples include civil unrest. Before all this chaos happened, anytime you turned on the news, they were talking about Hong Kong and the unfortunate mess that's going on there. This past fire season in Australia was the worst they'd ever seen. Before that, California had the worst fire season they had ever seen. So natural disasters are obviously going to be a massive impediment to businesses as well. But if you had remote staff or remote freelancers, you're going to be able to continue your operation, maybe not at full capacity, or perhaps other operations are running at full capacity with remote staff. So the point is being able to adapt to changing circumstances. Evolution is one of the biggest examples that I can provide anyone. It's not the tallest animal or the strongest animal or the smartest animal that survives through the ages. It's the animal that actually is able to adapt to its surroundings much more effectively and to the changing circumstances. Otherwise, we would still have these massive dinosaurs roaming the earth right now if adaptability wasn't the most valuable asset to have. Resourcefulness. It's about being resourceful and knowing that you can overcome the obstacles that are placed in front of you, focusing on what you have control over and disregarding anything that you can't influence.
Okay, sounds great. So some people will say, fine, they may not be able to operate fully remotely. And if we were in a different situation now and people had to choose, some may still say, I'd prefer to go into the office. But for those people who are kind of on the fence, right? Would you say that there are some opportunities where they could probably be a partial remote worker? They could kind of have some flexibilities that may be appealing to them and may convince them to work towards a more remote-driven sort of life?
Yeah, great question. There are jobs out there where people have actually approached their employer or their client and asked if they could do 1 day or 2 days a week at home. Now, under current circumstances, I think it's much more likely that the employer is actually asking their employee to work from home 5 days a week or full time. And in order to succeed as a remote worker, there's certainly a laundry list of things that you need to establish to really be successful in this area. And I don't need to touch on everything, but I'd like to quickly touch on some points to make sure people are successful. And I find it really beneficial to start my day off right and have a morning ritual. Basically, make a plan for myself on what's going to move the needle in a meaningful way. Because if you don't make a plan, you're going to end up falling under someone else's plan. You're going to be making someone else the priority, and you're going to be more reactive instead of proactive. So I'm a big believer behind morning rituals and setting the day off strong in that way. I mean, like there's a lot of cliche terms that people use with this, but I find it is really helpful. You can't give what you don't have. So I need to fill my cup up first thing in the morning so that I can focus myself, do something physical, meditate, read my book, or listen to my audiobook, and drink my water, have my coffee. And I have my morning ritual isn't necessarily going to work for you or someone else, but I really encourage everyone to have a plan, and then stick to that plan. It goes with sleep health as well. Like it's probably a little bit different for a digital nomad, but I think everyone's sleep patterns are being disrupted right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of negative news on the TV these days. It's really hard to limit that, but I also encourage people to limit how much negative information that they absorb, because even if you have something on in the background, you're not really paying attention. Your subconscious is, and you really want to limit how much you're really absorbing. So that's some good advice there that I found really beneficial. Set a timer. When you work on your butt for a living, I've noticed that it's super important to get into a state of flow. Make sure you put yourself in that positive, beautiful state so that you can be your most productive. And studies, sorry?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, studies have shown that when you're in that state of flow, you can accomplish more than if you were just, pardon my language, half-assing a task, right? So it's really important to limit distractions and limit distractions. And I mean, I could probably spend an entire live stream on this one subject alone. If there's one advice that your viewers should take away from this, it's to be able to manage distractions. There's lots of studies out there. Please go Google it. You'll find that on average, a distraction or interruption will cause 23 minutes of lost productivity. So just round that out, and every three distractions, you're losing an hour of productivity. So that's really important to have a workspace in your, most people are stuck at home right now, right? So I'm not saying, make the bedroom your office. Hopefully you can avoid that. It'd be best to keep work out of the bedroom and try to keep work in a separate area where you can actually close the door. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be available for everybody, but try your very best. And then on top of that, especially if you can't close the door, it's super important to talk to your loved ones, talk to your family and friends, anyone that you're in confinement with, in quarantine with, to make them understand that you love them, you care about them, you will support them. But during this hour and that hour, these are work hours. This is how you put food on the table. It's really important that you stay focused.
Okay.
So there's a few tips right there.
Good. We have a few questions coming in, Andrew. I mean, I see people asking. So, but just from what you've said, just the characteristics to be adaptable, to ensure you're limiting distractions, to have a dedicated workspace, etc. And a few questions that are coming in. One is asking, what about persons, I'll make this visible, what about persons who live in rural areas with limited internet? How can they work remotely? Will they get left out? And
great.
Go ahead. I have a point I could add to this, but I'll give you the opportunity to respond.
My first, I love this question, and I wish I had my gizmo with me here, and it's not with me right now. I didn't realize it would have been a good prop for this, but there are a number of hotspot mobile Wi-Fi devices. Excuse me. I'm not an affiliate or anything for any of these products out there. I tend to use Skyroam. It's a small puck-shaped orange device about that size. I chose Skyroam because they boast flexibility in the sense that they work in over 130 countries. And being a digital nomad, I wanted to have the most wide access possible. Now, the Skyroam does rely on local infrastructure, so it's very difficult to say that this would work for your viewer or not, because you would really have to invest in the product itself, bring it home, and try it to see if it would make an impact. There's boosters, Wi-Fi boosters available, but I do certainly feel for your viewer who is perhaps in a rural location that might not have the high-speed fiber optics plumbed out to them. Some areas do, some areas don't. So that is certainly a factor that needs to come into play. Not that anyone can be moving right now, but whenever you're looking for accommodations, it's one of the things that I look for, especially when I'm trying to book an Airbnb or something. I always ask what the internet speed is. And I'm not sure if this is valuable to your audience or not, but I always look for an upload speed of 5 megabytes per second because it helps with streaming and posting videos. Download speed is not normally an issue, but a little quick tip is it's good to find 5 megabytes per second as an upload speed, and then you should be fine. Okay. I hope that helps, but perhaps you have something that you can add to.
Okay, and then I just wanted to add to that, because I know, for example, that in several countries where internet connectivity is still not where it needs to be. And so it is not a case that at this particular point, if we were to take things as it is right at this moment, not everyone would be able to convert to a fully remote life, and even worse, a digital nomad lifestyle. But it's about trying to meet with your employers or those you work with in a middle ground of sorts. So if it is that you have a computer center or a computer lab that you can access 1 to 2 days per week, then it is that you could schedule a workflow around that. If it is, of course, that you scale to the point that you're getting job opportunities even outside of your own country, it gives you some flexibilities to schedule your workflow. So it may be that you say, oh, I don't have time to access the internet all the times before, but say you go on Fiverr, for example, and you offer administrative services, and the person says, okay, I want you to make calls for me between 10 and 2 every day. Then that's something that you could say, okay, I need to go to an internet cafe during this time frame to take advantage of that. And so as we go along and to speak about some of the job opportunities as well, we'll go a bit more into that. But we have a few more questions, Andrew. Francille is asking, can you share your morning routine, your morning ritual?
Sure, yeah. So the first thing I like to do is I do wake up from an alarm. I'm not one of those people that can just bounce out of bed with an alarm. So as much as I would like to say I jump out of bed bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, that's not the case. Grab a glass of water. I down the glass of water as quickly as I can, and I have a black coffee. From there, I go straight to a book because I find that's when my mind is quietest and when I'm most primed to actually absorb the information I'm trying to learn. I'm not one of those people. I don't read fiction. I like to read for personal development. So I set a timer almost for all of these activities so that I'm not spending too much time and I'm being more effective. So I'll read, and then from there, it depends on the day. Sometimes I'll do something physical, and sometimes I'll go have a meditation, and then I normally start before I even jump into work. These days, I've been reviewing YouTube videos for different influencers that I respect and follow, and certain articles and blog posts from, again, people that I trust. I'm very, very careful with who I read and whose content that I consume, because I know it has a very profound impact on my subconscious. So there's a really great quote, and I always screw this quote up. It's "Stand guard at the door of your mind." And I can't remember who said that, but it's super important to make sure that you're not letting too many negative influences impact your thought processes.
Okay.
So that's my morning ritual, and I swear by. I also like to remind myself 3 things that I'm grateful for.
Okay, and just to add a bit to what Andrew is saying, because I'm not a morning person at all either. In fact, I find I'm more productive at nights. It has had its consequences when being in a regular workspace, because imagine working throughout the night from 10 to 6 a.m. and then having to get ready to go to work at 9. But one of the tips I've been learning to be more productive with my workflow, even not being a morning person, is to recognize when is your most productive time frames of the day, and to use the time frame. I've always said to people, you never know what 2 hours can do, 4 hours of undisturbed time, if it means to put your phone away, to shelve it, and to just focus on one particular thing. So I've found for me as well that even though I'm not a morning person, I may take a little while longer to start, but once I start, I say, okay, 11 to 2 is my productive zone. I try to knock out my hardest things during that time frame. And so that helps me as well with my productivity. And before you continue, Andrew, there's one other question asking, how do you deal with being flexible and meeting the employer's deadlines at the same time?
Oh, well, great question. Yeah, I already mentioned it briefly, but I didn't go into detail. I set timers for myself when I want to go into that state, that flow state, to complete the task, and I always structure things in a way so that obviously the task will be done by the deadline. So, and when I say set a timer, it doesn't have it. more often than not, I'll be honest, it's 50 minutes, 55 minutes. And that sets it just creates a sense of urgency, even though I'm the one that did it. It creates a sense of urgency, and it's like I'm making a deal with myself. And you'd be surprised. If you haven't tried it, please give it a go. If you haven't tried it, when you see that clock ticking down and you know you only have 50 minutes to get this blog done, to get that task done, it stirs something up. It stirs something up, and it just makes me go into hyper efficiency mode. And as long as, depending on the project and depending on the deadline, as long as I give myself regular breaks and I allow myself to get in that flow state and I minimize distractions, I know I'm going to keep coming back to this. But this is one of the things that I use to minimize distractions: noise canceling headset. And I listen to Beethoven. I listen to Beethoven on a loop, and then I'm able to get into that flow state really quickly. It's just a YouTube link, and then I'm able to complete the task.
Okay, sounds good. And then even just to add with a bit about in terms of the employers, I don't want it to sound bad in terms of COVID-19. It's obviously very devastating. But if it's one thing that I've seen from it, is that how it has opened the door for employers in particular to look at the possibilities. I will never forget that I've had several employers who I would have been saying to them as a communications person, whose workflow really just depended on internet connectivity for the most part. And even just trying to segue from just doing everything remotely or just doing everything in office, I was willing to have a middle ground where I said, okay, what if I come in 2 days per week for meetings, etc., but the rest of my workflow can be done from wherever? I have found that there were some employers who were not open to that. They felt that you would not be productive and they could not control the processes. But what I am thinking, or what I'm seeing in terms of COVID-19, is that the opportunity has been presented, whereas persons or employers wouldn't have previously seen you as being able to be productive. They're now seeing where it is possible. So in terms of the question, in terms of asking how do you deal with being flexible and meeting the employer's deadline, that flexibility will now have to be a conversation with the employer to say, what are the time frames in which this needs to get done? Because I've found sometimes that when you give people flexible opportunities, they work. So it may be that someone may genuinely have something to do, even if we were back out into the real world and we had people doing their doctor's appointments, running off to do, etc. But if it is that they had the flexibility, they would even dedicate their late nights, their early mornings, their weekends to get it done because they knew of the relationship that could be established. So in terms of the flexibility, I would say that's a conversation worth having now. And as Andrew mentioned, setting the deadlines to ensure that you are meeting those in that way.
I'd like to add something to that, actually. I'd like to quickly add something on that note. I think what you're going to notice, maybe not in every situation, but in most circumstances, there are times where employees will miss the in-person collaboration process, and they will want to go back to work in the physical place. But now the conversation is going to flip, because now the employer realizes that they can improve the bottom line, improve their margins, have higher earnings, because they're not spending millions on commercial real estate. So they're becoming highly more productive. They would rather, in many cases, they would rather buy you Zoom or buy you some software to operate at home and save the millions on the real estate. And for those employees or freelancers, they're like, but we want to go into work. We want to collaborate. We want to work side by side with our colleagues. You're now hearing managers and CEOs and founders saying, okay, well, the onus is on you to prove to me that that's worth $20,000 a month, that's worth $100,000 a month. I really feel like that we're in this weird time where employers are realizing that they're far more profitable with their staff and their freelancers at home. And some people, especially if you're an extrovert, you're going to want to work with them, work with your colleagues side by side. And now your boss is going to say, prove that it's worth it, and then I'll pay the rent.
Okay, great. And so we have another question. I mean, the questions are coming in, and Dana Lynn is asking, my issue is balancing schoolwork and other projects. Currently, I am productive with my projects, but I am struggling to ease into the productive zone for school. Any tips? I know later on in the week we have an interview with a homeschooling person and also who does education virtually who may have some tips. But generally, Andrew, is there any response you'd probably want to give Daniel in terms of how to be productive for
Yeah,
all the different things she's balancing?
well, I've already mentioned a number of productivity tips. However, the one that I haven't mentioned yet, and I was hoping that I can squeeze into the conversation, and Dana Lynn, I do apologize if you missed the other tips that I've mentioned, but please just watch the recording and you'll be able to learn the other tips that we've discussed. Is the one tip that I find not enough people are talking about is accountability buddies or masterminds. Perhaps you can find another student that's working on the same projects as you, or similar projects as you, and maybe jump on a call with them at 9 a.m. 9 a.m. every single day, or make it weekly if you have to. But the more frequent, the better. And tell your accountability buddy or your mastermind. I've been in part of a mastermind for the last 3 years, and I can tell you is one of the most profound impacts I've made in my life was being part of this mastermind, because every week I have to make these promises, set these goals with this mastermind. And I know the next week, if I don't achieve those goals, I have those people I have to answer to. Now they're good friends of mine. I care about these people deeply. But if you end up having to tell someone, I'm going to get this, and this done today, and then you have to jump on the phone with them later on at 5 p.m., and you tell them you didn't get them done, you better have a reason why. And it does kind of stir things up too if you have some kind of negative reinforcement attached to it. You don't have to, but I find that that's a really great productivity hack that a lot of people read about or hear about. They're like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, but they don't actually put it into place. They don't actually do it, and you'll be surprised how effective that is and really gets you moving.
Right. So in terms of my followers as well, Andrew, one of the things people would be interested in is where can people find remote job opportunities? People are always talking about working remotely. You're there, now is a good time to start looking. What are some of the platforms, the places, the opportunities that people can look up for in terms of using their internet connection and themselves to earn an income?
Yeah, this is part of the reason why I created a brand recently, because I've been tweeting out and posting these resources. I think more and more of these resources are going to start popping up now. There's Remote Leaf, there's Remotive, there's I'm just pulling out names that I can remember off the top of my head, but I want to say that there are probably 24 links that I have saved, tucked away somewhere in a file on my computer that I can access whenever I want. So all you have to do is Google or do a search on any of these social media platforms, and some of these remote job resources have accounts, and they'll be tweeting out and posting out every single day on Instagram, on Twitter, everywhere, that this guy is looking for a software developer. This guy is looking for a CTO. This guy's and so there's all kinds of options out there. So and also you have to get on their email list. I really find that extremely valuable. Get on their email list. You could set a filter that you're only interested in marketing jobs or software development jobs or what have you, and then you'll get a daily or a weekly email on what jobs that have popped up that follow under your filter. And then some of the probably more obvious choices are Upwork, Fiverr, where you can get some contract freelance.com, Upwork, Fiverr. But yeah, there's all kinds of resources out there.
Yeah, great. And so even as Andrew mentioned, Upwork and Fiverr, for those of you who may not know those platforms, it doesn't have to be anything technical. It's people asking for administrative assistance. It's people asking for you to make phone calls for them. In fact, it's whatever service you normally offered in an office setting. You're at home now, you have a bit more free time on your hands. It's you looking to say, you want some phone calls made? I can make some phone calls for you. You want someone to type up minutes from a meeting? I can type up the minutes from the meeting. You want someone to write some content for you? Do you want someone to read something? Do you want to learn very basic English? Do you want someone to practice your English with? Because there's a huge market with non-English speakers who just want someone to practice the language with. Even outside of that, you may be a Jamaican, and then your language, people are very fascinated by it, and you just pop onto Fiverr and you create your account and say, I will teach you Jamaican. And you would be amazed how many people are signing up for your services. The platform handles all the payments for you. So it's literally very easy. Set up an account, Say what services you can offer. Say you can offer multiple services. You can be an assistant for someone. And just like that, you have an opportunity to earn from all over the world. You get to set your time zones, but importantly, as Andrew said as well, to ensure that you know the deadlines and that you're actually meeting them.
Yeah, VAs. Watch the market for virtual assistants boom. I fully expect virtual assistants to just explode. It's a great way for a new remote worker to enter into the remote space as well, to become a virtual assistant for somebody. Perhaps even volunteer to work for free just to get some traction, get some experience under your belt, and then and make some connections. And the examples that you just provided, Shanoy, valuable stuff. We're moving towards massive marketplaces that are going to be paying you on task-oriented services. So you're not going to be receiving an hourly wage anymore. You're going to receive $500 or 500 pounds or 500 euros for getting a website up or building a sales funnel or teaching English. That's where we're probably transitioning towards for sure.
Okay. And I'm just looking if questions are coming in, but even so, talk to us about tools, Andrew. So someone is there and they're just starting out. They want to know, what are the basic things I know? Or someone who is even more advanced, what are some of the tools that they can look forward to that they need to have? Is it a big investment? Is it that you can simply start where you are? Just talk to us about some of the tools that are required to function remotely.
So that depends heavily on the kind of work that you're going to be doing. But some of the basics, I would say, would be some form of communication, right? So you're looking at like an app like Slack. Lots of companies and businesses are using Slack. Lots of people use WhatsApp. And on the, actually, very quick segue on that point. Make sure that your social media profiles are as professional as you can get them. Because one thing that people need to be aware of is that if you're getting work as a remote worker, chances are your prospective client or employer is probably Googling you and is probably checking out your social media profile. So make sure that whatever is public, you're okay being public. And don't ever post something that you're not okay being public. So I just quick segue to say that. So some form of communication tools you're going to really want to improve your experience, your expertise at your level of comfort. Because if you haven't touched that once, you're certainly going to need to improve there. Payment, if you don't have a PayPal account, you're probably going to want to get one of those, or a TransferWise account. Get a TransferWise account because you're going to need some form or fashion to receive payment from your client or employer. Zoom and GoToWebinar are two massive tools that are being used, although Zoom is certainly taking the clear winning lead right now over GoToWebinar. What else? There's all kinds. It depends heavily on the kind of remote job that someone is doing. So you might need video equipment. You might need lighting equipment. You might want to get one of those ring lights that a lot of people are using these days because it's just really flattering lighting. You might want to use Rev.com. Rev.com. Maybe you don't want to be on camera, and you're better speaking into a recording device. And to get your thoughts down, and then you can send it to rev.com, and then someone will actually transcribe it for you. You can turn that into a blog. You can use that in a number of fashions. Okay. I guess it really does depend heavily on the line of work that you're in, but there's lots of tools available.
Okay, sounds good. All right, and I'm just looking as the questions are coming in, but then I also wanted to touch a bit, Andrew, on in terms of yourself and as a remote worker. Have you seen your work roles change over time, or is it that you just landed into one particular capacity and you've just continued along that direction? So talk to us a bit about really your journey into being a digital nomad. And for those of us who are just joining, a digital nomad is pretty much someone who travels and works from wherever. Not much traveling happening now, but that's what Andrew has been doing for a living. So I wanted him to just walk us through a bit of the opportunities that he has landed on along his remote work journey.
Yeah. So the first remote job I accepted is kind of an interesting story. I was actually voluntarily working with this American tech company, and I was actually hosting regular meetups for them in Vancouver, Canada, which is where I was based at the time. And this might be a tough option for a lot of people, but I find it really, really works. I'm a big believer behind the law of reciprocity. Give before you even think about asking. And I brought this particular company a lot of value. I donated all kinds of time because they were on a mission. They are on a mission that I'm a big supporter of. And so I helped support them and their community by hosting regular meetups. One thing led to another, and I was offered a job. And I had some experience in digital marketing, and so that was the role that I filled with them. Digital marketing is a fantastic option for anyone interested in being a digital nomad or a remote worker. There's a list as long as my arm that you can get of different professions that you can fill. You can get into SEO, search engine optimization, funnel building, social media management. You could be a click-through rate expert. You could be like Facebook ads. It just goes on and on and on. So I was lucky in the sense that I entered a field that I was already naturally interested in. And digital marketing is a massive field. So if I was to ever get bored or become less inspired in one area, I could easily transition to another. And then building upon that, it was the first remote job that I accepted, which then led to me developing relationships in other remote working capacities. Mm-hmm. And you only, like, it's cliche to say this, but you do business with the people you know, like, and trust.
Yes.
And so if you can find any way at all to get your foot in the door, whether that's volunteering or something else, you will find that will pay off huge dividends down the road, because you're going to start developing those relationships. And in times like these, in a crisis, in a pandemic, you're going to rely heavily. You're going to lean on those people that you know and you trust, because there's so much uncertainty out there right now. People crave certainty. Our brains are wired for safety. Our brains evolved to keep us safe. And so when you see that familiar face or that familiar photo pop up in your screen when someone sends you a DM, you already have a sense of safety because you've worked with them, you dealt with them before, they've provided value before on time, they met their deadlines on time. And so that will open up opportunities. I'm a natural networker, and I just know how to build rapport with people quickly. Me and Shanoy actually connected over LinkedIn. Shanoy, you did a LinkedIn post, and I commented on your post, and then I sent you a DM like, hey, if I can help, let me know. Like, I had no idea.
Perfect.
And I had no idea.
Yeah, that's awesome, Andrew, because, some questions are coming up. Before you say that, I just wanted to add, in terms of the person asked, in terms of the question about the opportunities, I would encourage people as well to look at what you're already doing and how you can monetize that. For me, as a communications practitioner, I knew that lots of the things I could do for people, advice in terms of how to structure, how to be effective, how to communicate, how to do their communication plans and strategies, those were things I could stay in my living room and do from a laptop. I don't know what positions you guys are in or the different capacities you are in, but think about things that you do well, things that people are likely to come and ask you for advice on. You may be a dental surgeon. You may not be in a capacity to go into your practice now, but is it a case that you can be offering people basic cleaning tips? It can be something as saying, I will teach children, or I will start to do some videos for children in terms of how to ensure that they have proper dental hygiene, and then look at the different platforms that are probably requiring this sort of service. So I would encourage as well, look at what you're very good at, and you'd be surprised how many people are willing to pay to get your feedback on things that you would have thought are meaningless. Some more questions popping in. And so Tishana asks, what is your advice for companies that were not online and is now transitioning? A very important question.
Yeah, really great question. I'm assuming she means that they're already employed for such a company, or they're trying to get work for such a company, you think, or what?
She means a company that she means like if you're the company owner.
You're the owner. Oh, okay, gotcha. So yeah, that's a tough spot without knowing the product or service that this company is bringing to the marketplace. That is a very tough spot for that company to be, because your hand is being forced. So it's not going to be a comfortable feeling. Change is not always easy, but it's necessary. And this crisis, this pandemic, is going to let's just call a spade a spade. We're in a crash, and crashes will phase out the companies and individuals that are not able to adapt to the new circumstances. Because let's be honest, we're never going to go back to where we were before. This is a fundamental shift. This is a planetary massive change that we're all talking about right now, that we're all exposed to. So companies, we're going to be talking about this for decades to come. We're living in a transformative moment. You're going to tell our kids, and people are going to be looking at us wide-eyed that we're all worldwide. People were confined in their homes and we're only allowed to go out for the bare necessities. So that's a very difficult question to answer without knowing more context about the product and service. I have done some research on markets that are expected to thrive and do well in the coming years. I don't know if you want me to touch on that, but we live in some interesting times.
Well, you could touch on that. Yeah, she says she does training services. And I think another question is coming in. Getting your team in order and getting your customers to adapt are both challenging. So she's in the training services sector.
Yeah, training services, awesome. I think training services are very easily transferable over into an online digital virtual environment. You're talking live streams, webinars, video courses, right? You should, if you're in a training service area that's very educational, education lends itself to a virtual environment in a very real way. I think she's in a really good spot. But it does mean going through a steep learning curve and learning how to use these virtual tools, and then taking one step at a time, just putting one foot in front of another. In the beginning, she's going to feel frustrated and you're going to feel like, this is taking forever. But you got to think about those compound effects. And a month from now, you're going to be providing massive value to your clients and your customers.
Okay. All right. I'll ask you a bit to touch on the markets, Andrew, but I did have another question. What does success look like in this position or this industry, and how do you measure it?
As being a remote worker?
Yeah.
Is that what they mean? Oh, success, I think, is measured in the fact that you're adaptable, that you can roll with the punches, that you can provide value no matter where you are in the world, as long as you have power and a internet connection. If you have electricity and an internet connection, you have creativity, you have consciousness, you have knowledge, you have experience. You are a unique individual that no one else can replicate. So you have an ability to bring value in a virtual way that no one else can. No one's going to write your book. No one's going to make your speech. No one's going to do the video editing that you can do. So I would encourage everyone to, like you were just so importantly sharing just a moment ago, Shanoy, figure out what people are already complimenting you on, and figuring out how to share that in a virtual digital way and build a brand for yourself, bring value, solve problems. People are only motivated by two things at the end of the day. They either want to move away from pain or towards pleasure. And unfortunately, moving away from pain is always a greater motivating force. So if you help people to move away from pain, you will probably have an easier time.
Okay, sounds great. All right. So that's there. And then just to add in terms of asking, I think it was a question in terms of the training services and getting people to adapt. And she said those can be challenging. But the next thing I wanted to, because you mentioned briefly, Andrew, that you had done some research on markets, industries that are booming. So for people who are tuned in and probably want to be looking out for some of those sort of opportunities, just share with us briefly in terms of some of those industries and areas.
Yeah, I think it's really important so first, I'm just going to echo what you said. First, let's focus on what you're already naturally good at, what you're already naturally interested in, because you're going to spend your own personal time reading about a subject or learning about a subject. You're not going to feel like you're being forced to do something because let's be honest, you're just going to end up dragging your feet and not really putting much effort in if you don't enjoy what you're learning or what you're doing. So there's that component. But then before starting a business, before applying for a job, I would consider the market that you are trying to get a job in. I would consider the market that you are trying to be an entrepreneur in, because if there's not already paying customers, what is the point? What is the point of wasting all your time, money, and effort if there's not already paying customers? Let's not reinvent the wheel here, right? So So I think this is important. I actually made a video of this recently and posted it on my YouTube channel, Digital Nomad Journey, but I'm just going to pull up my file here because I don't want to forget. At-home business, this is a no-brainer. I promise I'm going to talk about some others that are less obvious. At-home business. So anything, any product or service that will help encourage people to work at home in a more efficient manner. It could be a laptop stand. It could be noise canceling Bose headsets, like I've already talked about, right? So at-home business, at-home fitness. So people are canceling their gym memberships, and gyms are unfortunately going through a really rough time, and they're not expected to recover anytime soon. So think of any at-home fitness product or service. If you're a fitness instructor, you could be doing live streams and video courses right now. There's nothing stopping you from doing that right now. Or if you already developed a product, or thinking about developing a new product, right now is the time, because Amazon is hiring 100,000 people. They can still ship you an at-home exercise device. Immune system support. We've gone from a time a month ago when immune system support probably wasn't a trending thing. Now it's cool. Now it's cool. People actually want to. Now they're taking their vitamin C. Now they're doing whatever they can to improve their immune system, because they don't want to catch this virus. But let's be honest, no one enjoys getting sick. It just wasn't cool before. Now it's cool. Antimicrobial products. Any kind of cleaning product or thing that you could use to wash your kitchen, your bathroom at home, anything that will improve the cleanliness. Think of I don't want to say it, but it's the obvious: the masks, the hand sanitizer, anything that will improve someone's safety in that regard. That is also now cool and trending. Air purification. You got residential air purifiers, commercial air purifiers, and this might be more of an issue if you're living in a big city or a factory or some kind of area where a natural disaster is causing lots of forest fires, but that's going to be big business moving forward. Family connection. This is a big one. We have all kinds of people that are separate from their loved ones because they don't want, they see the news, they see all these terrible things happening to people, but they still want to connect. So think of all the online apps and games or ways that you can connect with your loved ones, and create it fun for them. Mm-hmm. You can create a whole business around this. You can create a product around this. Virtual reality. People love to be entertained, and think of all the downtime people have these days. I've been saying this idea for years now. I highly suspect that one day YouTube will have a virtual reality section. Think of all the times that you wanted to learn how to do something, whether it's fix your dishwasher, do the brakes in your car, learn how to use Photoshop, and you went to YouTube, watched a video, and then you went and did it. Well, imagine how much easier it would be if you were able to slip on your virtual reality set, plug into YouTube, and learn how to do something with your hands, and then go do it in real life. So I suspect virtual reality is going to be taken off big time. How about products that are made in America, made in the UK, made in Canada? Okay, this is a big one for a number of reasons. Not only do we have supply chain management has turned into an absolute chaos right now because borders are shut, but we also have the problem which wasn't always considered a problem, of globalization. We've become the world has gotten a lot smaller, and unfortunately that has resulted in a massive headaches when it comes to getting products shipped to you because they were going to come from China or some other part of the world that you now can't access anymore. So it's really important to think of products and services that are made right at home, wherever you're located, wherever you're watching this from, so that you can also support the local economy, because people are forced to go home. People are struggling to pay their bills. But if they're able to buy local, then you at least have that sense of pride that you're supporting your fellow Canadians, Americans, British, what have you. Contactless products. So there's obviously different payment methods and apps that are just recently in recent years have popped up to be able to pay for things without touching them. Some of these apps allow you to wave your hand in front of your phone because your hands are dirty or you're washing something and you don't want to touch your phone. This one could take a little bit more creativity, but contactless products clearly are going to have a space moving forward because nobody wants to touch anything anymore. If there was an elevator button that you didn't have to touch, I think that product would do pretty well right now. Just my 2 cents. Home cooking and food delivery, that's going to boom. Fishing, hiking, camping. any physical activity that you could do alone or with your partner, because you can't even play sports anymore. Lawn and garden. Anytime I go for my 1 day walk that I'm allowed, I can see all kinds of people out in their gardens. Lawn and garden. Online education. We've already talked about that. And then finally, because I don't want to spend too much time on this, finally, complementary products and services for any of the ideas that I've already discussed. For instance, if you're a marketer, you could specialize in helping people in home fitness. That's the example I've used before. You could do the social media advertising or the SEO for home fitness products and services, and you could expand to all the various options that are going to be available to you. Because any supportive product and service for a booming market, you're going to increase your chances of success.
Okay, sounds great. And so just to touch back on someone who would ask about success, I just wanted to add at the point as well that success is very relative. For some people, it will be replacing your income that you would have had now. For others, it would be to supplement or complement your income. But again, for even others, it's just about a sense of fulfillment, being able to work in a time and space that you want to work. And so I will wait to see if there are any more questions. But then finally, Andrew, is there anything else that you would want to share with the persons who are tuned in terms of your experience, what you're working on, some projects, and pretty much how they can connect with you as well?
Well, actually, before we went live, Shanoy and I had a quick chat, and I am in the final stages of writing a book. I am going to be publishing it free. I'm not charging for this book. It basically explains in a ton of detail how your different options of being a remote worker. I'm passionate about being a remote worker and a digital nomad. I'm going to be publishing that book, so keep an eye out for that. You can follow Digital Nomad Journey on any social media platform. I'm on, I think, 7 of them. And you can join the community in Telegram, Digital Nomad Journey in Telegram, which is our chat group. It's pretty small right now because I just started this brand a couple weeks ago, but that's where people are gathering, and you can check out any of my YouTube videos or posts at Digital Nomad Journey.
Okay, great. And I said we were winding up, but we have a question here. For an individual like me who have no experience in marketing, what is your recommendation for me to boost my confidence in creating a platform for myself?
Creating a platform. Can you elaborate on what kind of platform you'd be creating for yourself? Because it would depend heavily on what kind of skill set you already have or what interest you have in developing skill sets. But we already talked about earlier, you could go to Upwork.com, you could go to Fiverr, and you could just quickly scan the different positions that are available, and you will naturally gravitate to the ones that you already have an interest in.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they mean by creating a platform.
Okay. I think maybe some persons joined a little later as well, because one of the things that we had spent a bit of time on was platforms such as Fiverr, Outsourcely. I probably will drop them in the comments here. So you have Fiverr, you have Outsourcely, you have Upwork. You had mentioned some others, Andrew, that literally it is anything that you do. It is any service offering. It can be an administrative capacity. It can be teaching, tutoring. It can be having conversations in your native language with someone. And those do not require any high grade skill. It's literally things you're doing already in your everyday life. And these are the platforms that already handle payment processing for you. It's about just writing up your services. You may be good at a sport. Now is not a time when people may go out and play, but you could in fact go and say, okay, I will teach you the basics of playing golf online, for example. And you put that as one of your service offerings on Fiverr, for example. But what I would encourage you to do, go on those platforms. I'll drop them here. Andrew, you can tell me if I've missed some, but I definitely remember Fiverr, Outsourcely, Upwork. And you can even look at what people are asking for, because there are always people posting job opportunities. Today, for example, I went on and I was like, okay, I need a cool t-shirt design. I need a lovely graphic. And there are people there who they're charging super low prices. And then so you can also see what people are asking for. And if you're offering those services, you can bid on the job, or you can also post your profile to say, these are the kinds of things I can do. Don't limit yourself to any one thing. If you're able to do multiple things, as I say, some people want people to just check their emails. Some people have, in fact, I saw one, somebody has a massive email database and they need to segment it into different categories. And that's something that you can do. You'd never really think about it. So I would say in terms of the no experience and in terms of marketing, there are platforms that takes care of that. All it requires for you to do is to go on, create an account, post your skills and services, look at job opportunities that are there that doesn't require you to be in a physical space, and just offer your services for them and get paid.
And can I add on that, because the boost my confidence. I love how they worded that, because that's everything at the end of the day. I would highly encourage to boost your confidence. I'd highly encourage just set certain small tasks to build that momentum. Like create a PayPal account for yourself if you don't have a PayPal account. Do that one thing and then pat yourself on the back. Yeah, I did it. Now I have a PayPal account. Now I have a way to send and receive currencies. It could be something small, and then on top of that, change the people that you're spending the most of your time with, because you are the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. Surround yourself with other people who are also trying to become remote workers, or who are already remote workers, and learn from them. Okay, join a Facebook group, join a Telegram chat, join a community, and meet on a regular basis. And I promise you will things will start clicking. Things will start clicking, and your confidence will grow.
Great. All right, I'm just trying to see if there are any further questions, but that's very excellent advice, Andrew, in terms of the negotiation and the networking, rather, not negotiation, in terms of the networking and connecting with people who are like-minded. I mean, this happened for me in a way in terms of my work at the time and how I was interacting with other people. But certainly I connected with Andrew because we're both members of a digital working space. And so it's just one of the ways that you can really get your foot in terms of how can you be very effective and very productive in being.
I really find a lot of people these days are bending over backwards to be helpful. I don't know, and maybe that's because I surround myself with those kinds of people. But really, I'm sure if anyone sent you a question, Shanoy, you'd be more than happy to answer it. And anyone can contact me on Digital Nomad Journey. I'd be more than happy to answer it. I surround myself with people that I seek guidance and help from on a regular basis, and they're more than happy to help me, because I'm not approaching them with the mentality of scarcity or take, because again, that law of reciprocity, right? That's important, and I know that it's important to let people lean on my experience right now, because you and I have developed skills that we can leverage in a remote way, and there's a lot of scared people out there right now. So there's nothing wrong with helping one another.
Okay, great. And so questions are still coming in. On the other hand, I have the confidence, but not necessarily the connections. I don't have a lot of free time even now, but wouldn't mind volunteering my skills as time comes up. I'm not sure if that's a question per se, or if it's just that she's sharing.
It sounds like the lack of connections. Again, join a community, and just monitor the questions in the comments at first, and then try to add value. Because if I've seen this too many times, if you join a community or join a chat and you just start demanding answers, I need job, or something like the community, the group is not going to be very willing to help you out. Okay, so it's really important to follow the law of reciprocity, join a community, and try to add value wherever you can. Try to point people in the right direction if you're able, and or just have a little bit of humility and join. Hey, I'm new here. I know nothing. I don't know anyone in the world of remote work, and I'm looking to connect with some like-minded people. How are you guys doing today? How was your Easter long weekend? And people will resonate with you.
Yeah, and that's so true, because even it depends on the different service offerings that you have. You can almost always find a small business, an entrepreneur who requires some of the services you have. I find sometimes as well, Andrew, that if you go on LinkedIn, for example, and based on their algorithm, they may recognize you as an expert and say there are people looking for your tips. And so it is at that time that it dawns on you that, hey, I really am an expert. I've been doing this for a number of years. I do have some insights who someone who is just entering this field, or someone who is thinking of entering this field, could benefit from a conversation. So sometimes just even volunteering, it isn't just about going out and working with a specific organization. It's looking for the opportunities around you for others who are junior to you, who probably just even need mentorship. And those are some capacities in which you can not just volunteer, but also learn in terms of remote work opportunities. So that's an avenue as well for persons to look into.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then a quote here: great works are performed by perseverance. So in the comment, I dropped the three that I can remember. That's Fiverr, Fiverr,
5 or 2 hours, yeah.
Upwork, and Outsourcely. I dropped those in, and you
Yeah.
can check those out and see. Just have a look around as a starter to see what it is that people are asking for, what services people are offering from themselves. And I can almost guarantee you that you will be amazed at the varied opportunities there. Fiverr is all skill levels. As you go up to Upwork, I think Upwork you can actually do very skilled things. So if you're a accountant, for example, or you're a communications practitioner, or you are a marketing major, or you're a business person, or you're a coding expert or stuff, on Upwork, you can get more detailed job opportunities with actual companies who want someone for a short-term process, a long-term process, and stuff. And then you never know that as you continue to do more and more of those, you find that you get a certain sense of freedom in terms of the opportunities that you want. But just to mention again that I know not everyone will want to necessarily do a full-on remote life, but it is just to look at the opportunities that exist within the space, especially with what is happening now and how more and more businesses and individuals have been forced online.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm not seeing any more questions. If you have any more questions, you could just let us know in the next couple of minutes, but we are looking to wrap. And again, you can contact Andrew, Digital Nomad Journey. I will drop that here. And when he publishes his book, I will happily share it with the network as well.
Yeah, I would love to get you. I'll make sure you get the link, Shanoy. Please share it to anyone. It's going to be free. I'm not charging for this book.
Yeah, so when Andrew publishes his book, and then I'm dropping his details here as well, you can connect with him on his journey. After this link has become published, you're free to drop comments on it. If it's something that Andrew can respond to or something that I can respond to, we're happy to provide some insights on that as well. But all in all, this was a very eye-opening chat. It was very interactive and engaging. If you still have questions I mentioned, you can leave them after, and we'll be happy to just give a response to them. So I want to thank everyone who has come out and joined us today. Thank you so much, Andrew, for sparing your time.
Hey, thank you.
That even though things aren't happening on the outside, within your capacity, you have lots to do on the inside. And so I wanted to take the time to thank you for doing that and for being in touch with us. And we look forward to continuing to follow your digital nomad journey. Well, just some comments here. Great insight, Andrew, and thank you, Shanoy. Thank you so much. So guys, just to let you know as well, that remote life continues. Tomorrow we are speaking to homeschool persons. So for all of you who are having difficulties teaching your kids to some extent, even looking at virtual education, that's a topic we're touching on tomorrow. And as the week goes on, we will touch on several different topics. You can go to the Infinity IMC pages across Facebook and Instagram to get more details on the topics and the time frames. I think we're trying to wrap, but we do have some questions. Okay, great. So it's pretty much people saying thank you, and thank you for sharing, and that this was fantastic. And Andrew, I give you the chance if there is any one last thing you want to say, and the audience seem to have enjoyed the conversation.
We had some technical difficulties at the beginning. Apologies everybody for the delay. But hey, that's how it goes sometimes. I hope that I was able to answer some questions and provide some insights. Shanoy, thank you so much for organizing this week-long speaker series. I think this is going to provide a ton of value. I am going to be attending for the rest of the week as well, because I still consider myself a student. I love learning more about this subject because I'm going to apply what I can and I'm going to discard the rest. That's how I look at any leverageable skill, and I encourage other people to take what I was sharing today in the same vein, apply what makes sense and discard the rest.
Sure, great. Great. All right. Sounds awesome. So thank you everyone for tuning in. And if you're on our mailing list, you would already have the details. If not, just hop over to our Infinity IMC page and you will get some additional information in terms of all the other topics and the time frame. So thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.